Welcome to Bill's Garage. Today I'm going to look at some alternator testing. Let me show you how I got it set up, how I have it set up. Okay, so here's how I have my setup. I've got my scope hooked up to my B line coming out of my alternator. Big fat line goes right back to the battery. Now, I also have ground hooked up to my battery and to my scope. And that's kind of the setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it, and we're going to have a fast look at the charging system. And this is really something you could do at home. You could use a meter for this. You don't have to use a scope. I just happen to be what I grabbed. All right. Okay, so here's my scope. I'm looking at battery voltage. Actually, I'm looking at alternator voltage. I'm as close to the alternator output as I can get. I'm right on the B line. So I'm going to start it. We're going to look at the charging system. So right now, I've started it a couple times, so it's trying to replace the amperage that I took out, so the charging system voltage is a little higher. Now, if I give it gas, raise the RPM, it stays the same. That's a product of the voltage regulator. So here, let me load it up some. That's the high beams are on. And that's my fan on high. You see it drop down a little bit and then kick back up? That's a product of the voltage regulator doing its job. You rev up the engine and it still stays the same, or thereabouts. Okay? If I shut it off, shut the blower motor off, it may drop a little bit, turn off my headlights. That's a product of my voltage regulator. It's doing its job. Now, if I let it run for a while, you'll actually see charging system voltage drop back down. That's because it's fully charged the battery. Get it? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up for an AC ripple test. And it's what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the condition of the diode rectifier bridge, and is it filtering all of the AC below zero stuff out? We okay? I'll show you the setup and we'll do it. So here's my setup. I got my scope set up. I have it set up just to read AC volts. And then I have it on the ground on it directly to the alternator, and I'm still on my big fat B line coming out. Okay? So here is my ripple. This is how well my diodes are doing. And they're doing okay. Hang on. We can see them, and I got about 37 millivolts. That was the air compressor, AC compressor coming on and off. That'll put a big spike in the line, but you can see there is some, and this is okay. If I get to a couple of hundred millivolts or a whole volt, well, that's a problem with the diode rectifier bridge, and the alternator needs to be replaced. We good? So I'm going to move it over to the battery and watch what happens to my numbers. Good. Putting it over at the battery acts as a filter to filter this stuff out.
it doesn't give me an accurate reading. Get it? This reading must be taken at the alternator, not at the battery.
Hey, okay, so here's a schematic of the charging system I'm on, 2000 Ford Ranger, and most of them are about the same as this one. And if we look at it, here's my generator, alternator right here. Here's my big fat B line, and that goes right to my battery. I got an alt system fuse that goes right to this A line, so this is just 12 volts. This is just 12 volts. And if we look at this light green red line, this one goes to my charged lamp. This right here is my ignition line because this guy goes on and off with the key. Okay, so with the key on, this one should have B plus, and this plug disconnected. This one should have B plus, this one should have B plus, and this B line should have B plus. So how many wires I got? I got 3 wires that I'd have to check on this thing. They all should have B plus with the ignition key on. This one should go on and off with the key. Get it? It's pretty simple. I'm gonna do another test here. I'm going to set up for something. So we looked at my schematic on this guy, and it's really pretty simple. Customer comes in, I suspect I have a bad alternator. I check my charging system voltage, and it's not high enough, or it's not where it should be. I'm going to come in and I'm going to check very quickly, do a couple of fast checks on this guy, look up the schematic, find my B line, and that should go directly back to the battery, which I literally could test with a test light very quickly. I got the clippy thing on the negative post to the battery, and yeah, I have voltage there. I have the key on, so this yellow guy should be 12 volts as well, and it is. And so I'm good. And this is my IG line that goes through my charge light bulb, and that's such a small amount of amperage to light that light bulb up. I'm going to just check it with a different way. Anyways, so
here's another down and dirty test. I take a screwdriver. And what I'm going to do is very carefully, I have to be very careful with this. I'm going to slip it inside here, and I want to touch the center of the pulley. I just want to touch it, okay? With the hand. I can feel it's slightly magnetic. Get it? So what that means is if it's slightly magnetic, what that means is my rotor, because that's connected to the pulley. Hang on, let me shut this off. My rotor that's connected to my pulley, because here's the alternator. This is what I'm touching, is right here, just very gently. Okay, I want to be really careful because this guy's spinning. I touch it, and if it's magnetic, that tells me a whole bunch of stuff. What does that tell me that's working? Well, what's working is the rotor and the brushes and the regulator, all that stuff. The slip rings, the rotor, the brushes, the regulator, the S line, the IG line, all that stuff is good because that's the stuff I need to build a magnetic field on the rotor, and that's what's making that shaft magnetic. You get it? Now, this is a pretty decent test, and if I were to load it up, turn like I did before, like turning on high-speed blower and turning on the high beams and stuff, you could feel it get more magnetic. It would grab a hold of the screwdriver even more. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's enough to feel. I can feel it when I get closer. It's like, that tells me a lot, and it's a fast, easy, simple, stupid test. So if I didn't have any magnetism there, I know where the problem is. If I do have magnetism there and I still don't have the proper output, I know it lies on the other side, the stator side, the diode rectifier bridge side, the B line, you know, that stuff. That's where that is. If I do have a magnetic field, or I don't have a magnetic field, I know it lies on the other side of the alternator, the rotor side, the low amperage side. Does that make sense? Got it? Yeah, I hope that helps. Down and dirty, easy alternator stuff. Make sure you watch the alternator presentation. I'll put a link to it. Thanks.